to this week's episode of The Career Climb. If this is your first time here, The Career Climb is where we spark conversations with executives and industry leaders. And this is where they share their perspective on leadership and workplace culture. And we talk about it through real life cases and not theory. We don't do hypotheticals around here. And I can't wait for you to meet tonight's guest expert. But if this is your first time seeing my face, I am your host, Julia Rock, founder and CEO at Rock Career Development. And we are a Houston-based consulting firm, and we work with organizations to help them retain their best talent and get the best out of them through leadership development solutions. And so I am so excited for you to be here with us tonight. If you want to catch up on past episodes of The Career Climb, you can connect with me right here on LinkedIn, or you can visit rockcareer.com/CC archive. And that way you can view our YouTube playlist. And as always, please go ahead and interact with us in the chat. I want to hear where you're watching from. I want to hear what resonates with you, what your thoughts are on tonight's topic. And, we want to just keep the energy and the momentum going. So don't be afraid to interact with us in the chat. And now, so enough of me chatting by myself. I'm ready for you to meet tonight's very special guest, Charity McDonald. She is a career and leadership strategist. And tonight we're going to talk about how leaders can successfully navigate career pivots in this particular climate. So Charity, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Julia. I'm super excited to be here. And this is definitely a much needed topic. So I'm happy that you had me to come on to support you with this topic, because it's really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So before we hop into it, because I know how great of an expert you are, I know all the skills, but I don't want to keep all the goodness to myself. So would you please introduce yourself to the viewers?
Absolutely. So my name is Charity McDonald. I'm the founder of CRWN Institute. And as Julia said, I am a career and leadership strategist. So I help people in career transition. I also help people who are looking to bridge a gap between their leadership and legacy. So I support those who are corporate clients. I support those who are business owners. I support those who are in mid to senior leadership as well, who are experiencing career transition. So whether that is because you're looking to level up in leadership, or you're just looking for a change due to the changes that are currently happening that we see in corporate restructuring and things of that nature. And I'm also an author and speaker. So I speak at colleges, I speak at corporations, I do presentations as well. And really excited about some projects that I'm working on as well that I'll share a little later on, but very grateful to be here. And thanks again to Julia for having me. She definitely is someone I admire a great deal on the LinkedIn platform. So very happy to be part of her program.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we have one of our favorite people in the chat saying, Joy, that's Joy, the Joyful Recruiter. Right. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And so I want to piggyback on some of the things you just shared around, the kind of the work that you do, because and as you said at the top of the show, this is truly an important conversation. But I want to know, especially for our viewers who are listening, why do you think we need to have this conversation about the career pivot like right now, especially with a focus on leaders?
Right. We're in a changing world. Right. So as you know, Julia, there are a lot of changes in the job market, as well as I do, so many different factors, whether that is globalization, technology, the advancements that are taking place there, and just the changes in infrastructure that we see. There are a lot of jobs that were once we saw as being, these were reliable jobs, whether that be in government, or if we say like HR in particular, learning and development, which was a function that I primarily have worked in more recently on the corporate consulting side of things. There's definitely been a change for sure, a change of the tide, and not just within those industries, but other industries as well. And as you know, there's a recent report that is saying is basically close to 1 million jobs that were missing from the report. So there's definitely questions there as to if we're getting the correct information when we're learning about job reports and stating the job opportunities that are available, as opposed to who is actually looking for work. And so many people are looking to change. A career pivot in today's market is something that really is almost inevitable. Like it's not to say that there aren't people who are within their same job for 20, 30 years, but that is actually not typical in the current market. So a career pivot will almost be like, it's like a form of insurance professionally, so that you are able to leverage your skills and you are able to market yourself with the way that the system is right now. So it's very important to talk about career pivoting, because at some point you're going to pivot, or someone you know is going to pivot. And I'm sure we all know someone who has made a career pivot if we have not made one ourselves.
Yeah, and I think you said something right there that we all would know somebody who may be, who may be engaged in a career pivot, and it's going to happen at some point. And so I want to kind of piggyback on that to talk about what are some of the common misconceptions that you would say that people have about pivoting in your career. Are there, what are some thoughts that people may have about that? Because I think there may be some stigma attached to it, or is there some fear, or just a lack of understanding sometimes? And so wondering what your thoughts are on some of the misconceptions that may be out there.
Yes, this definitely ties into the larger aspect of our discussion, which you will take the lead on. But yes, there definitely is a need to share. There are misconceptions. So a lot of people, especially those who, for lack of a better term, are more experience rich. Some people don't like the term seasoned. They may feel that there isn't an opportunity, or the opportunities are actually, if we're speaking to those in leadership, the opportunities are actually fewer than they were before. And also the way that we go about going through that process of job search strategy is very different than what it was just a couple of years ago. It's a different market. Before it was a candidate's market. Now that's not the case. It's an employer's market at the time, right? So it can vary obviously from industry to industry, but overall, this is what we're seeing, is that it takes a much longer time. The misconceptions might be that it's not a possibility, and that I have to just, gonna have to just kind of stay where I am, right? Or not knowing what the next step is. So it could be maybe there's a question of age discrimination. I worked with a lot of tech professionals, and that was a major concern for those who were more experienced, is that it'll be harder for them, because the people that they would like to bring in who are able to, they're able to bring them in and at a more economical, salary. It's kind of like they're concerned about that. The other thing may be technology, upskilling and reskilling. Do people have in-demand skills, or are they even aware of what those skills are for the roles, that if they're trying to be competitive in the market? Because there are certain skills that completely exist now, thanks to artificial intelligence, of course, and other technologies that people are looking for us to know how to use already. So that's the thing as well. So getting upskilled or reskilling the skills that we have that maybe we hadn't utilized as much, that need to take place. And then other misconception is the timing that it might take for that opportunity. So I think most people have an expectation based off their previous experience. And I really want to stress to people, they may have to throw that out the window completely, because the timetables are totally different now than what they ever were before. Because the market now is a market where not only are you now, in a market where there's a competing, if you will, with people of different backgrounds, but also people who are already gainfully employed, and they're also looking for new opportunities. And then those who are new to the job market as well, who are viable to the job market as well, that are recent graduates, or people who are just new to the marketplace. And I've supported people at every level. So this is a real thing, and everyone feels, oh, I don't have enough experience, I have too much experience. That is also another challenge, is being potentially overqualified. So that is another challenge. It's so many, right? I don't want to speak so much on that.
No. But I think what you shared is so rich, and we see another friend in the chat. Hey, Brittany, appreciate you joining us this evening. One of the things that you talked about around one, that there are people who are dealing with different challenges, whether it's ageism and just thinking about, am I going to be competitive in this market? And then the skills to go along with that, especially if you've been in the workforce for some time. perhaps you've gone into a leadership role and you haven't used certain skills in a while, and now you find yourself back out on the market. Now it's like, man, I got to go back and try to brush up on skills or get new skills, which can be daunting for some folks. And then one of the other things that you mentioned was around the actual process for jobs. I remember a time, the good old days when you could just have one interview, maybe two, to get a job, right? Remember those good old days, right? And now, you've got to jump through 12 hoops, and you've got to, hop on one foot and sing and close your eyes while writing a presentation just to get to the third or fourth. It's become ridiculous. And so for a lot of candidates, I know it's a hard go, because they want the jobs, and so they keep jumping through the hoops, and then they get discouraged as they're not getting the opportunities. And so we do have, so I want to cover one of these comments here. So from Joy, where ageism is real, it's still widespread and often overlooked, even though it's a significant form of discrimination. And so not sure if you wanted to add any additional flavor to that, Charity, around specifically ageism. I know you touched on that a little bit, but not sure if you have any additional thoughts around ageism.
Yes, it is a real issue for sure, because there can be, certain bias there. Obviously, humans are still the people making the decisions, and in that there is bias. So when I used to have a stint as a recruiter, Joy, but I have recruiter friends who are, letting me know, like, yes, that actually is a thing. And there is a way that when I'm dealing with people who are in that situation, I try to make sure that we're going to highlight, their more recent experiences. So there's things called like ageless resumes, right? Yeah. Now, you might feel like, okay, why do we have to do all that? But I think it's imperative, especially in certain markets where there is more of an emphasis, because it can be this idea that if someone is of a certain age, there may be, there may be a gap or a willingness to learn. There are people who have a certain bias in that way. They may feel, oh, well, this person is more stuck in the way, or this person is going to look for way more money than when I can just get the recent grad, right? So there's that as well. And it is an employer's market. So they can be quite persnickety about how they hire, who they hire, and why. So there's a host of issues that come just with that piece of age discrimination. But there's also, other biases as well, like gender. It could be, and age can go, different ways, right? It can be for those who are older, those who are younger as well.
Who are younger, yeah. And to the point that you made, and I just saw Joy mention in the chat as well, it's like not letting your resume age you, right?
Right.
You don't have to put, I've got 30 years of experience, and you're already telling people how, you're already kind of aging yourself out. And so it's really about being smart about what you put on your resume. But I think also for the folks who are listening who may be leaders, it's also for them to make sure that they're not leaning into those biases, right? It's like your organization could benefit from the wisdom of some folks who do have experience. If you have a team of 20 people and everybody's young and new, it's like the blind leading the blind, right? And so you want to have some folks who have a little bit of experience and who can help the others along, help educate them, train them, something. And so before we get into the case study, I wanted to cover something from Brittany here, where she mentioned about, wanting to hear your thoughts on people who have been entrepreneurs for some time and are now trying to re-enter the market in an official corporate role. And she and Shawana were having a discussion about strategies for this. And so my guess is you've probably seen some of that in your work, Charity, where there are folks who are entrepreneurs and they were fighting the good fight. And now it's like, hey, it's time for a steady paycheck. I got kids, I got, bills. So how do I get back into the corporate role? Any thoughts around that?
Yes, that's definitely a great topic to bring up as well. So yes, I've seen the reverse. It's been both ways. So a lot of times I think when I was initially consulting, that also included people who wanted to transition from corporate into leaning more into, if they had a business endeavor, to lean more into that full time. And then you also see the reverse, or you also see more of an inclusive perhaps they want, what I see probably more often is that people actually want what is called a portfolio career, where they're able to do both. So they have the work that they are doing, but they're also able to do those things that they're passionate about on the side that might be entrepreneurial. But yeah, to a lot of entrepreneurs, I've actually talked to a lot of entrepreneurs who are like, hey, I want to move back. And it's like with entrepreneurs, there are so many skills that you develop in business that can be applied to so many different roles. So it's a matter of knowing how to hone in on the skills that will be relevant to the positions that you're looking for, because you're literally, in a lot of cases, wearing many hats, right? As opposed to when you are just an employee. As an entrepreneur, you're doing all of the things, right? You're the strategic visionary, and you're also implementing. If you, assuming you have a team, you may not. So you're doing all the things until you can get a team anyway. So it's a matter of kind of leaning in terms of zoning in on what is your unique zone of genius. Like, what area do you want to concentrate in? Do you want to concentrate as a strategist? Do you want to concentrate as being, a visionary, right, in the leadership? The other thing is that when people are transitioning from entrepreneurs into corporate, how is it that you're going to present that language to the people you are interviewing for? So, and that's been something I myself has come up for myself as well, right? So in looking for opportunities, it's kind of like, okay, so how does that come across, right? The thing that I would recommend for those who are in entrepreneurship, if you are looking for corporate, just know there's more than one option. It doesn't have to just be that one way. I know a lot of folks who are saying they've chosen to be strategic partners to companies, where they're able to offer their insights fractionally to those organizations. There are people who are also willing to re-enter the market corporate, but be like senior level individual contributors, right? Or they can be entrepreneurs, right? So you have different options. It's not like a one size fit all. I would want to know more specifics around, the unique situation that that Brittany is speaking to. But I know there are so many different ways you can go with that.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up the fractional piece, right? It may not be that you have to go in and get the job just kind of the official way. You can come in and be a fractional and get that steady paycheck. Because perhaps it's contracted for a period of time, 6 months, 12 months, whatever the case is, so that you can get your footing under you. You can kind of, predict your income for a period of time. And that then gives you a door into the organization, because they can see what you can do when you're given the opportunity. And the other thing to mention is, especially for entrepreneurs, you likely have a network that you spent some time building. And so you probably have some benefit from all those connections that other folks may not have. So the people that you have gone to lunch with and done deals with and so forth, these may be the people that you need to go back now and have some conversations with and say, hey, we worked together on that project. I'm actually looking to get back on the other side of the table. And if you've done good business with them or supported them, they're probably willing to have a conversation on your behalf or make an introduction. So some great points there. Man, I'm seeing some good friends in the chat. We've got Enrique Gonzalez from Orlando, my good friend, and we've got Christy coming in from Florida. So just good to see all of the folks in the chat today. So we're going to go ahead and get into this case study, Charity. So for the folks who are listening, if this is your first time, we go through a case study. I'm going to give you the high level points. And so if you want to just take notes as to what we're going to be talking about, I'm not going to read it word for word. But I just want to give you guys some insights as to where we're going. So we want to make sure that this is something practical for you guys to absorb. So Charlie, let's talk about Tina. Poor Tina. So Tina, VP of operations at a big logistics company, and she's had this position for 4 years. But it seems that, and she's built up a good reputation, being calm under pressure, and she's been there for 20 years. But now it seems like she's on the struggle bus. Poor Tina's on the struggle bus, and she's dealing with restructuring and having to lay people off, and her team is being squeezed, and so now she is starting to feel some anxiety. Her mental health is suffering, her physical health is suffering, and she wasn't sure about where her company was going. But then she's also started to look at externally. So, but she's seeing that there aren't as many job openings out there. The executive searches are slowing. And the idea of kind of like leaping without a parachute, she feels a little bit reckless, especially after 20 years in industry, and the fact that there's inflation and tariffs, anybody. And so now she's wondering, because she just feels stuck. And so now she's beginning to think about, okay, maybe I need to go out into the marketplace and talk to my network, but she's not hearing anything from people, or she's getting rejected, or she's just hearing about jobs that feel like the same thing. So now she's wondering, is this the best time or the worst time to make a pivot? Should she just stay put? And or is staying in the wrong place when you don't feel good and it's impacting your health, is that more risky long term? So for the folks who are listening, you may be in a situation similar to Tina's, where you've been in a place for a long time and it's impacting how you feel within yourself, your body, your mental health is suffering, but you also need a paycheck, and you're not sure about what's outside. And so let's get started with that conversation. So thinking about Tina, Charity, and think about today's uncertain job market. How should a leader like Tina really weigh the risks of staying in her organization and dealing with the physical, mental health, and all those things versus leaving?
Yeah, wow. So this is definitely an issue that not only has come to my inbox, I'm sure it's come to yours. That's why you've created this case study. This is definitely common to see, especially in more recent years, burnout being a big conversation. As you know, you have a great TEDx talk on burnout. And I would say shout out to Julia. I would say that it is really imperative to really take inventory of what's within your locus of control. So I feel like when I'm supporting clients, on the private end, I like to look at them holistically as a person, and not just their job or their title, but like who they actually are as a person at the core. So who is Tina in terms of her mental state? So I would look at like mentally, physically, like what are the elements? What are the options that are available within her organization? Are they able to support her in any way in terms of wellness, or in terms of, is there an option for a sabbatical? Is there an option for, a temporary leave or something for mental health? Just help support her in that, because really our mental health is so important. And I feel like if you don't have, your health in order, it kind of just everything else in terms of your quality of life will just go downhill, regardless of what it is that you're doing, how much money you earn, and all of that. You have to be here in order for it to, matter.
That's right.
So I would just look at more of the internal and work my way out in terms of support. So what's within her locus of control? I also want to go back to your point with people, because you made a good point, and how sometimes our networks, they can be, when we're already in a role already for so long, it can be a bit limiting just to kind of stick with like just who we know and who we're used to engaging with. And it can be really daunting for a lot of high achievers, actually, in particular, to extend that outside of those that we know. So I would also look into what is it that she ultimately wants to do. Is this she's moving within keeping the same role within a new organization, or is she looking to consider other possibilities in another organization? And what would that actually look like ideally for her? So I like to get clear on like the core values that someone intrinsically has, because I do believe like you have to have that in order to have conviction. And if you don't have conviction and you don't believe that, okay, this is just not possible, it really won't be, like, regardless of who you have as a coach or as a mentor or support, you really have to believe it for yourself that this is possible. People are willing to help people they see that are willing to help themselves. I know that from my own self. When I tried to make the transition, it was a sharp learning curve to try to move into the tech space from higher education, two totally different worlds. But it was like, okay, I had transferable skills, but I didn't have the knowledge of the terminology of what things meant. So I had to get around people who know those things. And that meant I had to go outside of the higher education bubble. I had to talk to people who had made that transition. It didn't have to be exactly my industry, but someone that had that knowledge. And I was willing to invest and show up and say, hey, I need help with this, right? Because a lot of times we can be, when we're in a position of power, it's kind of like, oh, we don't want to lose ourselves by asking for help. But that's one of the 5 keys of resilience, is a willingness to ask for help, being optimistic, knowing that you will have to adapt because change is inevitable, right? So it's not so easy just to say, oh, be willing to talk to people. Have an actual strategy in place where you're offering value to people who are in different organizations. And maybe you can also get introductions. Now, I know that can take time, obviously, to get referrals. That is not something that I think can really frustrate people, because when they don't see a result right away, they just kind of, don't move in that direction to continue. And the thing is it's not about like, you doing it like, oh, I reached out to 5 people and only 1 person followed up. That's actually not bad, but most people
Right.
will
That percentage isn't bad,
stop.
honestly.
Not bad at all, but you got to kind of keep going,
Right.
so I think that is in a pivot. To me, it's really important to keep people, but first you have to have the right mindset of knowing that the possibility exists for you. If you don't believe that it exists for you, it does not, right? And then we can see even how the market is, but you never know when the right opportunity can present itself to you when you're open for that, right? Then also we should have patience as well, because it would take a longer time, especially for someone who's at a VP level. If they're looking to go outside, that hiring and onboarding process could be a year or a year, and you know what I mean? It could be so much
Takes
longer
time.
than what we're used to it being. So in the past, it might have been you got hired, it only took a month, right? Now that could be a year, you don't know, or 6 months, it really depends. So you have to keep that in mind as well, and to really set the tone in terms of your expectations. The mindset, though, is really key, because the mindset is what opens the door for you to know, like, okay, this possibility exists. And we have to reframe when we're hearing no as, okay, no is not always the final say. That could be not right now. That could be, okay, there's a next opportunity. There's a next option. That's the way I like to see it, is like, if this one door closes, I know that another door, it will open. And the other
Right.
thing is, patience is key. So somehow Tina is able to get some type of support, even if it was something that bridged the gap with her mental state, right? To help her just to have some relief. That would make a lot of difference, because she would have time to actually, calm down, have that time to herself for wellness, to take care of her self-care and wellness. And then she could come back refreshed. The other thing, are there other options within her office that she hadn't considered internally? Because a lot of times we're quick to jump ship. And I don't know if this type of market is the market for that.
Right.
Like, you have to really consider, and it's not to say that you have to stay, and this is not forever. This is saying this is right now. Just like when I work with some folks, and they have to sometimes take what's called a bridge job. Maybe they'll do project work, like you mentioned earlier. That's something for now, so that you have something that's going right. And then in her case, it could be for now. She will stay in this position until another opportunity has presented itself. And also there's things in place to kind of safeguard her mental state and well-being as well, right? So we're not just saying like, just keep you out there and you're going through all kinds of madness. There's space there. And there are options, especially at that level. There are options.
Yeah. And I mean, there's just so much good stuff in what you shared. I mean, one of the things that you mentioned was around patience in the process, right? And so, especially for folks who are in senior roles, there are far more roles for analysts and supervisors than there are for VPs or directors or SVPs and that kind of thing. And so you've got to give yourself some grace and have some patience in the process. The folks that I have worked with who are executives, depending on the role, 6 months, a year, 15 months, and because even just the interview process takes several months. So you've got to find the role, and then you've got to interview at all the rounds. And so giving yourself some patience in that. And one of the other things that I really like that you said was around the network and the fact that you may have to go outside what you're used to. And I think when people hear the term network, it's like, well, you've got your sphere of folks and you continue to talk to those people. But really, if this sphere is not working for you and you want to get someplace else, you've got to find, okay, well, who do I now need to have as part of my network? And can my current network get me introduced to those people? Right. So I think people don't realize all the ways to leverage your network is the fact that they also can support you in saying, hey, the knowledge I have now is great, but I need more in this space. And so can you make an introduction on my behalf? I see that you're connected to so-and-so at this company in this industry. Can you make a call? Can you set up an email or something like that? So I really love the fact that you said, hey, you've got to go outside what you're used to. That's really, really big. And so Enrique had a comment here around something important. So needing a paycheck or needing a new job or career are two different things. And so I would, I have thoughts on that, but I'll toss that to you, Charity. Any thoughts on that? The fact that, needing a paycheck and just getting the bills paid is very different than saying, hey, I need a new job or a career. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, it's definitely a distinction, worth making there. So I think for most folks, that could be seen as one and the same for most folks. Obviously, we're referring to those in leadership. So when you're making a decision to make a career change, the mindset there is different. There's an understanding there that may take a longer time because especially if you're trying to make an external change, that may take a much longer time. But the thing is that the person who is in the case study, I'm looking at it as this is a dire situation that this person needs help. It's an emergency situation. And I was just giving the options that, to the earlier points that were made about the different ones who are making transitions from entrepreneurship to get back into work. So I'm considering, I'm trying to be mindful that there are some people on the line that may not fit a VP of operations, right? So there's definitely a distinction there. A career is something that you're thinking, okay, I want to do something that's different, and this is going to really align with my purpose. When we're just trying to, get our needs met, just our basic needs, that's more of a matter of this is survival, right? So it's not about so much, it may not be exactly what you want to do, but it is something that you're doing, and that's still good too, because you are gaining skills from that as well. So whether that is, a job, whether you are volunteering, whether you're doing an internship that's paid, whether you're doing project-based work, I think it's all helpful. And I think a lot of times people kind of undermine their experiences that may not fit perfectly within the corporate space. Because to be honest, how I got into consulting was leveraging the work that I did. That was not, it was not like, traditional work. It was, I had experience of helping people as a volunteer career coach, and I got the results. So that's why I was able to get hired as a consultant doing the same thing for tech professionals.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things to mention again here is to not discount any of the skills that you have in a market like this, right? Where there's so much happening, there's so much uncertainty. Taking to the point that you made earlier, taking an inventory of all the skills you have and what value you can add and bring to the marketplace, because it may be that you take something slightly unconventional for a period of time, a fractional, a temporal, a project-based something, if you feel the need that you have to make a move. But one of the other things that you said that was really important was is there opportunity elsewhere in your organization? So Tina's a VP, but it may be that if she's a VP in this company, perhaps they have another division, another affiliate, or something where she may be able to shift. But for folks who are listening, if you're in a situation where it's like, hey, I'm not happy with where I'm at, I'm feeling my mental health is suffering, and none of the programs, the EHAP programs or the EAP programs, or none of them, those are working. I need something different. It may be that it's like, where else can I go that will get me into a place where I can reset and start over and maybe have a new opportunity. So thank you for that. I want to keep you moving, because I know that I want to be mindful of your time this evening. One of the questions that keeps coming up with folks that I talk to is about the actual rebrand, right? The rebrand and the repositioning of themselves in a time when, like now, when the economy is tight and their role is no longer aligned for them. So because, the rebrand, I feel like, is the hardest part for a lot of folks. And I know that you do the branding work. So I'd love to kind of hear your insights and perspectives around, how can leaders especially rebrand and position themselves?
That's a great question. And that actually, I would say, is really probably one of the most important things that I think people overlook is their career brand. And that makes really the difference, really. I've seen that literally change like what people earn is just how they do their branding. I have seen people double their pay just from improving branding. And it is a real thing. It is, something that is so imperative. So branding is about, like, there's this quote by Maya Angelou, and she says that people may not remember what you said or what you did. And I know you did a lot of great things, Julia, and you said a lot of great things, but they do remember how you made them feel. So I'm always going to remember, wow, Julia made me feel in our initial phone call, like she was just this bright energy that was like supportive. And I'm just like, wow, she did all these things and she's willing to, speak with me. And I reached out to several people I'm in a business mentorship with that didn't even follow up with me. So for you to reach out and you're like a whole LinkedIn top voice, I was just like, wow, she really is special, beyond all of that. Right. So it's like how you make me feel. That's part of your brand, is that you know how to ignite and get things changing, right. And be innovative in terms of helping people to uncomplicate leadership. And for the brand, it's just really that simple. What would people say about you when you're not in the room? So I know with the work that I did when I was doing the career transition consulting work, I was told it was like, career therapy. Obviously, I'm not a therapist, but they just were like, I just feel like things will be better, right? So I looked at common terms. I heard dedicated. They felt empowered. They felt, excited to make the next step. They felt like they had clarity and they got the resources they needed to make the next steps. Even if they didn't necessarily know when the right opportunity would present itself, they knew for sure that it would be there. So brand is just, how can you convey that so that people understand, okay, what is it that you want, people to feel, and the experience I have, that's what I always think about. So my whole thing is, I have the Crown framework and I'm all about helping people to be encouraged, right? And to feel that they are able to move forward regardless of what is presented in front of them. And it may not look the way they think it will, right? So it's a lot of reframing and really getting to the mindset. So branding for people is really going to be based off, who are you? Okay. Yeah. Why do we want to know who you are? How do you make people feel? Like, think about that and or how you would like for people to feel, right? That's what I would consider being your brand. So like I said with you, yours is perfect because you want to complicate leadership. That's what you do. It's simple, bottom line, right? It's so simple to understand. And I think for myself, I like to connect dots. That's something I like doing. So connecting leadership to legacy. I like to focus a lot on self-leadership and success on your own terms. So again, I'm all about possibilities and that it's not like a one size fit all. I like to meet the client where they are at and use a holistic approach. And also just treat people the way I want to be treated, right? That I would want to be treated. I did not have a career coach coming up, but I did definitely hire one when I was trying to transition into tech because I didn't understand the technology terms. And I didn't know that the work I already was doing, it transferred right over. I just needed to get more knowledge around that terminology and upskill in my knowledge of the terms that they use. But I already did the work. Like this is the part that someone needs to come in and help someone. And that's part of branding as well, helping people understand, look, your skills, they could be used here. They could be used, in all these other things that people don't even consider. That's also branding. So it's how you present yourself, how you show up to the world, how people perceive you when you're not in the room, what they have to say about you, what are the things that are more consistently said, and hopefully they're positive, right? The positive things, right? And that's what you want to highlight. You don't want to focus so much on, oh, well, I didn't really do this. Well, I kind of had a gap in my career. Like you want to focus on the things that you did well.
That you have actually done, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's what one of the things that you said there is around, how do you want to be perceived? How do you want people to view you? How do you want people to feel? And it goes back to the core of who you are, right? Because you could have had whatever titles, but how do people connect with you and interact with you? That's the brand that precedes you more than, hey, you used to make all these widgets, right? It's what you've done for people. It's the skills that you have built, and being able to put your best foot forward, right? And I think when people think about a brand, the idea is that your brand should precede you, right? Like if you're not in the room, people should know who you are and what you offer. And the beauty of your brand is that if you work with someone like Charity or someone and who can help you craft the brand that you want people to see, right? Like you're in the driver's seat of the brand that you create, right? It's up to you to put that perception out there. And so I wanted to ask you one last question. We talked a little bit about mindset and brand positioning and so forth. And so for the folks who are listening, they're like, okay, I've heard everything today, but I want to go do something after I get off this call today. What do I go do? So what are practical steps that professionals and leaders can take to, really future-proof their careers and then get ready for career pivots, but without, just jumping headfirst and being impulsive? Like, what are practical steps that folks can take today when it comes to their career pivots and then getting ready for what's next? Like we talked about upskilling.
That's a great question. That's $1 million question.
I try to ask good questions.
Yeah, you ask great questions. So I would say get clear on your story. That's the simple way to put it. You got to get clear on your story. And I'm not going to go into the framework because that makes it a whole long thing, but get clear on your story. So that could simply be, who are you? So, okay, you could state, this is who you are. Like I do this. So that could be, for myself, I'm a career leadership strategist, but then what is it that you did prior? Or what is it that your story, it's a beginning, a middle, and an end. So where are you at now? Where have you been and where are you going? If you kind of can surmise that actually helps you to practically have your brand right there because it's your story. And if you're not clear on where you're actually going, this is where you can, enlist the help of those that that can speak to your strengths, or you can work with, a coach or strategist like myself or Julia. You can work with someone who maybe you used to work with, like just ask them, hey, I'm thinking about a career pivot. So this is when you don't have the clarity, it is helpful to have support on that. But if you're clear on what it is that you want to do, that is the story. It's that simple. So, it's, I do. So if I'm talking about Tina, I'm a VP of operations, and I am looking for opportunities as a chief officer of operations, right? I'm just kind of putting that in there.
Yeah.
What I've done prior is the work I did prior with the company, right? So she would give more detail than that, but that gives you the story. And then from there, you already have the basis of your brand. From there, you can build on what it is people think of you when you're not in the room and things of that nature. but that's the basis, is your story. Understand your story, where you are, where you've been, and where you're going. If you understand those three things, the rest it'll come over time, right? Obviously, some people might need more research, but it will come to you.
I love that. So for those of you who are listening who may be in Tina's shoes, so perhaps you're in a senior role and you're thinking about what's next for you, it's really important for you to get clear on your story. So who are you? What skills and expertise do you have? What experience do you have? And then what do you want to be known for now? Especially if you're pivoting, it may be that you just like, what narrative do you want to have? So she talked about perhaps shifting to a chief role, or perhaps you're shifting disciplines or whatever it might be. It's important for you to get clear on your story and your brand, and get help if you need it. I know everybody wants to DIY their way to success, but I'm telling you, and this is, it doesn't have to be either of us. You can choose us, whoever is of your choosing, but making sure that you're not spinning your wheels. This is your career story, and your career opportunities are too important to let them suffer because you kind of want to DIY and half step it. But there's just so many good nuggets that you shared with us today, Charity. I know that folks are listening have gotten a lot of nuggets if they've been in Tina's position or they know someone who is. You've given them practical insights for them to take with them. But before we wrap up, a little birdie told me that you have a new project coming out that so if I hear correctly, it's a book that's coming out. So I'd love to just make sure that our listeners and our viewers have a chance to hear more about what that is before we wrap up, because I'm excited from what I heard. So we'd love for you to share with the viewers.
Well, I appreciate that little nudge there. I appreciate it because, wow, I appreciate you reminding me. So yes, the project is this collaborative project with some women leaders across North America. We got together. The publisher referred to us as the Elite Eight, but we came together to diverse women of different backgrounds and different leadership experiences. We're all sharing our different perspectives. I think with my particular chapter, I am emphasizing the importance and power of self-leadership. And I do talk a little bit more about my framework in the book and the practical ways it's helped other people. And if you're reading the book, it will help you, right? So it'll give you the practical steps to get started to, you don't even have to necessarily, if you read the book, it will give you step by step on what to do. And I love that each chapter gives practical insight. So the name of the book is Women, Work, and Leadership, Embracing Courage and Boldly Leading from Within. So I'm super excited to be part of that. And it's definitely a passion project, definitely very dear and near to my heart. And there's more that will be coming out about that. So just follow me on LinkedIn if you're not currently doing so. Okay. And
I was going to ask, where is it? When is it coming out and the links? But it sounds like we got to follow you. So for those who are listening, if you want to get your hands on Charity's insights in the book, you got to go connect with her on LinkedIn so you can follow along and get the insights. And so are there any other places people should follow you or to connect with you if they want to say, hey, I'm in Tina's position and I know that I need help? How can the good folks who are listening connect with you?
Definitely. You can contact me on LinkedIn. I'm there most often. It'll be easiest to contact me there. And there are more ways you're able to connect with me, but that information is on my profile. So just reach out to me there. And I'm excited to share more about the book as that unfolds. So it should be available next month, but I'm glad to share more as I'm able to when I'm able to do so. And I thank you so much, Julia, for your support and reminder.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Charity, for your words of wisdom, insight, and encouragement. Folks, I hope that you have at least a page or two of notes from tonight's conversation with Charity. Lots of insights about how to successfully navigate the pivot. It may be that you stay where you are for a period of time, get some additional help try a fractional position, or get something new entirely. But there are a lot of options for you. So don't feel like you're stuck in a box. And if you don't know where to turn, make sure that you're reaching out and getting the support you need. So thank you all for watching, Charity. Thank you again. We'll be back soon. Next week I'm traveling, but I will be back the week after for another episode of the Career Climb. So thank you guys for watching and have a great evening. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.